So we are near the end of 2025 and going into 2026, I want to make sure you guys at least have a high yield savings account. Now, a lot of people tend to get it confused that it's same as a CD when it's actually two separate things. So a CD is a certificate of deposit and you're agreeing to a certain amount of months that you're going to be leaving your money in without withdrawing. So usually these are called terms. So you have a 3, 6, or 9 month term, or depending on who you bank with, they may be different. So just for an example, let's say we go with a 6 month term. That means I'm agreeing to leave my money there without withdrawing. And if I do withdraw, there is going to be a fee attached to it. But depending on who your bank issuer is, you can actually see the workarounds and whether or not you need it for emergency. There are some things you can or cannot do. Again, you have to self-educate yourself on what you're signing with a CD. But on the other hand, with a high yield savings account, it is a lot more flexible. So I can move money in and out whenever I want, but the downside to that is that the interest rate is not going to be locked in because it is going to be changing on a month-to-month basis based off the Federal Reserve. Now, with a CD, when I agree to that 6 months, I am also agreeing to get stuck with that interest rate that I agreed upon. So let's say, for example, with a high yield savings account, I was getting like a 4.3. And at the time for the CD, it was a 4.3. So if I agree with the 4.3 with the CD, I'm guaranteed that 4.3 for 6 months. Now, over time, let's say the next month with a high yield savings account, if it drops down to 3.7, that is the interest rate I'm now stuck with compared to a CD. So I just want to educate you guys there on what the differences are because they are two completely different things. But the main purpose of this video is going to be for the high yield savings account, and I'm going to be going over three main ones, which is technically two. The third one is going to be considered a bonus because there are some additional things you have to do in order to get the higher interest rate. So if you're new to this channel, my name is Andy. I'm a senior programmer analyst that loves to talk about personal finances. Here in this channel, we like to talk about credit cards, budgeting, and financial tools that can possibly help you guys out. But enough of that, let's go ahead and start the video. Starting off, we're going to be going over the Capital One 360 Performance Savings Account. Now, if you've been following this channel for a long time, you will know I'm a big fan of the Capital One products. But since we're only looking at it in the actual savings accounts, I'm actually going to be putting this at a lower tier. Now, even though it's a lower tier, it does come with some pros. One of the pros is going to be starting off is the simplicity. And I say simplicity, it's kind of weird to say, but it's actually straightforward. And the way I do my banking stuff is that I like to have my physical money in one account, and then I have my investments separately, and then all my loans and mortgages and all things like that and from separate issuers. So I like to keep things separated. And that's just me, how I do my things, but some people out there like to combine everything and only have to log into one specific app. But if you stick all the way to the end of this video to the bonus account, then you will see an option for you if you want to put everything together. Now, another pro to this is the fact that there is no withdrawal limits. Now, this is kind of a touchy subject in the way because before there was actually limits set within the savings account, but they were uplifted due to like the COVID shutdown. And a lot of people were moving money out of their savings accounts due to like actual pandemic stuff. So those I don't think were ever re-added. And based off my research, I didn't find anything stating that they've been adding those actual limits back on. I never received emails. I never received a actual letter sent to my house stating that they're going to be re-added on. So I've actually moved money back and forth pretty frequently, and it's never been an issue. But if you're a person that currently banks with Capital One and are receiving those notifications, let me know in the comment section below because I'm really interested to see on what those limits are if they do have some. And also at the time of recording this video, it is going to be set at a 3.4% APY interest rate. So this is already way above the normal average, and that's going to be something like Chase, Bank of America, or Wells Fargo that's only giving you 0.01%. So you can see that's more than 3 times the value of those traditional bank accounts. So you can be making passive income with a high yield savings account, something like the Capital One. And let's not forget about the main part of this account is that there is no fees, no minimums, and it is FDIC insured. Now, even though I did state a lot of the pros, there is going to be some cons. And one of the main cons is the fact you have to open up a separate savings account for each goal. Now, you may be thinking, well, isn't that the purpose of saving accounts is for separate goals? Well, yes, it is, but there's some other accounts out there that actually figured out a workaround to this, which is going to be the next one we're going to be going over. But for the sake of Capital One, I do want to explain, if you do plan on going with this route, how it's going to look. So you're going to open up 3 separate savings accounts, and let's say you have one for emergency fund, you have a wedding fund, and then you have something like a down payment on the house. Eventually, you're going to reach that goal on the down payment. You're going to withdraw that money and make the deposit on the house. So then now you're left with a zeroed out account. Within that account, the main thing is that a lot of people are going to be just go ahead and closing it out because it is a zeroed out account. Now you're going to only be left with just the regular emergency and then your wedding fund. But let's say eventually down the line you want to set up a new goal. Then you have to open up a new savings account, and then it's going to give you a new account number. So depending on how you have your transferring set up, you're going to have to reconnect with this new account number, which is definitely a hassle for some users. But you may argue stating that I'll just leave that account open and probably just have $1 in there so that way it doesn't close. You can definitely do that as well and just rename the account to whatever goal you want. That is an option you can do too, but just know there are other options out there. It kind of does this a little bit better. But if you're still looking or interested in Capital One, they are a great starter point, especially in the high yield savings account, because it is, again, a very simple account to use and it's very straightforward. Now, hopping over to the Ally savings account, this account is going to be giving you 3.3%. Now, you may be thinking, well, why would I go with something lower compared to Capital One that it's at 3.4? Well, that's what they call in the industry rate chasing. And I was a victim of it at some point too. I was always trying to fight for the highest interest rate and to win that 0.10, 0.20% with a new account. But at the end of the day, you're really going to be actually fighting for a couple of cents. And if you're a person that is willing to do that extra work every single month, that's completely up to you. I did it and it just got tiresome. So I just decided to stick with one account, keep my money there, and just collect interest. As long as it's competitive, you'll be 100% fine. But again, if you want to fight for that additional 0.10, 0.20%, that's going to be completely up to you. Now, some of the pros of this bank account is the fact there is going to be no catch as well, meaning that there's no minimum requirements for you to start earning interest. So just like Capital One, you can literally just sign up for a savings account and you will start collecting interest. But the one thing that really stands out with Ally, and I think they're one of the first ones to actually do this, is to set up actual virtual buckets within one savings account. Now, how this looks is actually really interesting. So when you log into Ally, you're going to be getting one actual savings account. And within that savings account, you can actually set up separate buckets in the account. And again, using the same examples like an emergency, a wedding, and a house payment, you can actually open up those buckets and separate the money within those. And you're going to be collecting the interest just like you would as if it's just one savings account, but you can actually physically see your goals. And if you want to get rid of one, you actually just close it out and it's no new account number. And if you want to replace it, just open up a new virtual bucket account and it's going to be replacing it with no additional accounts. So to have one account number and to move everything into one location and virtually separate it, I think that's a really great feature. And if I were to restart from the beginning, I probably would have gone with Ally to start off with because of that specific feature. Now, those are going to be the only pros I have for this account. And I know it's really short, but those are the two main ones about this account. And besides the fact it's also going to be FDIC insured. But we're going to go ahead and hop over to the cons of this account. And one of the main ones I think is going to stand out to many people is going to be the fact that there is going to be withdrawal limits. Now, on the website, it does state that the limit is going to be 10 per statement cycle. Depending on your account type, these limit transactions include things like online and mobile banking transfers between online bank accounts or to a third party, overdraft transfer services, checks, and point of sale transactions such as a debit card purchase. So if you're a person that knows how to save money, this is not going to be a big issue because the main purpose of having a savings account is to have it there and not even mess with it and let it collect interest. Yes, there are going to be some issues in the future, like for emergencies or if an accident happens or you lost your job. That's what it's there for, right? So obviously having those limits won't be that big of a deal if you're using the savings account responsibly. Now, if you go past those limits, there is a possibility that Ally will decide whether or not to close your account. And if you go back to the little message that they state, it says we don't charge a fee for going over the limit. However, we'll close your account if you exceed it more than an occasional basis. So if you're a person that is worried about having this limit on yourself, maybe the Capital One savings account would probably be a better option for yourself. Now, hopping over to the last bank account, which is the bonus account, it's going to be the SoFi savings and checking account. Now, the reason why I'm putting these two together is because when you open up a savings account with SoFi, you are going to be required to open up a checking account. So already with this bank, I do want to start off with the cons, and why it's going to be a big con for me is because you are going to be required to do one of the three in order for you to get the higher interest rate. Now, if you hop over to the website, they are going to be advertising a 4.3% APY, but if you read the fine print, it is going to be dropping down to 3.6%. Now, even though that interest rate is a lot higher compared to the other two banks I went over in this video, you may be thinking just to go on this one. But before you jump the gun here, just make sure you understand what one of those three requirements are. The first one is going to be requiring you to do a direct deposit. And if you can't do that, the second option is going to be requiring you to do a deposit of at least $5,000 every 30 days. And if you can't do either one of those, the third option is a subscription-based option, which is going to be $10 per month in order for you to get the higher interest rate. So for someone like myself, I don't like to be forced into a ecosystem where it requires me to do something in order to get a gain. Now, if you look at the Capital One and Ally, you can just open up an account and you automatically get that interest rate. Now, if you're in the market to actually transition into a different bank, then SoFi at that point would be better, but do keep in mind it is going to be an online only bank. Now, let's say if you move away from one of the options you have to do, your interest rate is going to be dropping down to 1%. So that is going to be one of the big cons with this specific bank account. But like I stated, if you're going to be transitioning all your money into one account and you move a SoFi, then that's not going to be a big issue for yourself. Now, some people can play the game here. You can actually go to your actual employer and maybe deposit $1 or $2, because any actual deposit of any amount will then unlock that feature for you. So you can go ahead and set up to get $1 and put the rest into a separate checking account if you like. But not everyone has that capability, because me, myself, I had to physically go into the HR department and actually physically do paperwork, while others have the option to do it online. So depending on your certain circumstances, you may be able to do this and not really have to do a lot of work on the back end in order for you to get that direct deposit. So again, it is going to be a lot of workarounds, and you can do it however you want, but just make sure you know what you're getting into and what the interest rates are when you do and don't do direct deposit. Now, hopping over to the pros of this account is that they have a feature called vaults. Now, with vaults, it allows you to do the same thing like the Ally Buckets does, which is open up separate virtual accounts within one saves account, and you can earn interest on them as well. So that's again a great thing, because you don't have to worry about multiple account numbers, again referring back to the Capital One setup. Now, one thing I really do give props to SoFi is a feature called Relay. Now with Relay, what they allow you to do is actually connect all your bank accounts, that's even including credit cards, to let you know what your net worth is or how much you owe on certain credit cards. So that actually eliminates the process of you actually logging in into each separate bank account. But again, how I explained earlier, I'm a person that likes to keep things separate, so I don't mind doing this. But if you want to save yourself that hassle of doing all those things, then SoFi would be definitely a good option for you if you want that kind of feature. So after breaking down these 3 different bank accounts, I want to make sure you guys are starting off 2026 on the right foot and not make the same mistake I did, because at the beginning of 2025, I only had a 0.10% APY, which is only making me between $1 to $3 a month. Once I made that transition into a higher interest account, I was making between 50 to 60. So that's money you're literally living on the table, and I don't want you guys to make that same mistake as I did. Now, in this video, I did go over only 3, and the reason why I did that is because these are the 3 different bank accounts I personally trust and I did my research on. So if you want to go for a different option, there are many options out there. There's other ones like Discover, Amex, and many others. So make sure you do your research and make sure you read the fine print to make sure you're doing the minimum requirements in order to get that higher interest rate. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button below. And as always, let's try to keep things simple, and I'll see you on the next one.